Dr. K,
my man.
Somebody's got to do this job. Somebody's got to live this life, and you are blessed to live it. But you're not just resting on your laurel. You're going out there. You're changing the game. You're changing the stigma.
What are you trying to butter me up for here?
Will you marry me? Going to Northwestern changed your life.
Yeah.
It did.
It changed my life, man. Yeah, it changed my life.
And part of you accomplishing the feat of Northwestern is help you create the confidence to know that like you're going to be able to figure this thing out.
Yeah, that's part. But I think that's kind of where true confidence comes from, right? Mm-hmm. You know, if you are inefficient for 1 minute per patient, and you see 40 patients in a day, that's 40 minutes in a day that you just lost.
What, if any, ambition do you have outside of medicine?
You know, I think doing stuff like this, my goal is to design new devices or new medications and ways to kind of impact patients that, really are able to change the world,
LawFlip, objection, Your Honor. Turn the game upside down. LawFlip, objection, Your Honor. Turn the game upside down.
Welcome to LawFlip. It's a conversation about law, life, medicine, and everything in between. So he's an eye surgeon. He's trained at respected institutions. He's presented at national conferences. But there's so many more things that are important to him. He is in a culture of medicine that glorifies hard work, long hours, sacrifices. But times are changing, and he wants to glorify some other things as well. He wants to create a healthy lifestyle. He wants to provide value to those around him. He's a good-looking guy. I mean, look at this guy. Sort of straight out of Central Casting, but he's got a different take on things, and we're here for it. So welcome to Dr. Alex Knezvik.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me, Benjy. I've been looking forward to this, so happy to be here.
Yeah, we're happy to have you on. So don't forget to follow us everywhere on social media at LawFlip, and subscribe to our list and call us on our new phone number, 1-833-LawFlip. So, Dr. K, how are you feeling?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I, living the dream. I'm living the dream. Man. How about you?
So sometimes people say that facetiously, but with you, I believe it.
Yeah.
So let's get the basics out of the way. What is your practice area?
I do a lot of stuff. So, I did my my fellowship in corneal transplants and refractive surgery. So, so we do so kind of LASIK, cataracts, corneal transplants. Do kind of comprehensive ophthalmology as well, but kind of focus on sort of anterior segment surgery.
And how many years of training?
4 years college, 4 years med school, an internship, 3 years of residency, and then a year of fellowship. So I guess that ends up 13.
Wow. Okay.
Not a math major.
All right. Okay. So American physicians are increasingly unhappy with their once vaunted profession. Why?
It's a tough job. It's a tough job. And I think it's getting harder. You listen to a lot of older physicians kind of talking about how medicine has changed and, electronic health records, insurances, kind of aging population, number of patients coming in the door. There's a lot of things that have changed in medicine. It's not practiced the same way it was 30 years ago. And I think there's kind of a new generation that's here that needs to kind of figure out, how do we make sense of this?
Yeah. And part of making sense of it is sort of going against that hustle hard mentality. So like we're, we have the law field, we have the doctor field, everybody, it's basically accepted that we bust our butts, we work long hours. You proudly state on your Instagram that you could find you surfing or sailing. How do you have the confidence to put something out there like that when you're supposed to be hustling hard?
Particularly my generation, as we were going through training, there was a focus on physician burnout rates. Mm-hmm. There's once upon a time, doctors used to lead the charge in almost everything that you didn't want to lead the charge in. Divorce, alcohol abuse, depression, anxiety, all sorts of things that don't lead to a happy kind of good longevity for a professional field, for a profession, because ultimately it takes a lot to train people, right?
Sure.
You look at these 13 years, you don't want people burning out 5 years, 10 years. They don't want to do this job anymore. They switch, they do something else. So I think that it's kind of in the profession's best interest to take care of their medical providers, and that's not just.
How did you get comfortable with putting stuff out there?
Yeah.
That I'm having a good time. I'm actually enjoying my life because it's just not favorably looked upon by the traditional medicine community?
In med school, that was kind of a push, amongst my kind of group of friends and amongst sort of my generation that, we wanted to do good work. But in order to do good work, kind of the airplane mentality, right? You got to put your own mask on before you can put one on for someone else.
Absolutely.
And I think it's slowly become more accepted. You look at Instagram, you look at social media, you have more doctors that are kind of coming out and building a little bit more of this social media presence. People, I think it's becoming more accepted.
Sure.
I think I don't know that it's 100% accepted at this point. But I'm okay with that. I think that, it's moving in that direction. We'll probably get there.
And so while there's no doubt that consumers are paying the highest they've ever paid for medicine, right? The costs are increasing to a crazy degree. The increase in cost is not necessarily correlating with an increase in pay for doctors.
No, on the contrary.
Yeah. And so tell me about your peers and how they're dealing with, maybe they felt like they've been sold a bag of goods that maybe they weren't actually obtaining at the end of medicine or end of medical school, and what the mentality is around money and how, people came in thinking they were going to have this glamorous, really high paid job, and maybe that's not the way it's turning out.
I can tell you, I know people personally that don't, aren't interested in practicing clinical medicine, because for a host of reasons, but, that being part of it. So, I think that there is, some of my friends, some of my, colleagues that have kind of accepted that, this is where we are. And ultimately at the end of the day, it's not just about the money, right? I think a lot of the big driver for people that go into medicine, they really do kind of believe in the cause, they believe in the mission, and they want to help people. So you come into a position where maybe the deal is not what it used to be, but it's still not a bad deal.
Sure.
You get to do a lot for people. So.
Sure, I think that there is that hope. You go into law school, you go into medical school, and you have these dreams of taking care of people. But I think you do assume that you're going to be able to live comfortably.
Yeah.
And we live in Los Angeles, and living comfortably here is tough. It is tough. I know people that make really good money that have a hard time living comfortably. And so one of the things that you don't necessarily think about is you have unhappy doctors. You may have unhappy patients. You may not be giving the best care because you're unhappy. Has that been a topic of discussion that that the unhappy or discontent nature of these doctors is actually resulting in worse care?
Don't quote me on it, but if I recall correctly, I'm pretty sure there were studies that we went through back, this has been like 5 years ago now or so in med school, where we actually looked at patient outcomes, and that actually being one of the main drivers for physician kind of well-being, and kind of this push by the institutions actually for incorporating. They did this in my residency at back in Chicago at Northwestern, where we did like a wellness day for residents, and there was sort of more of a focus on the physicians and on the medical staff, knowing that burnt out doctors don't do as good of a job, more medical errors, lower patient satisfaction. I think that stuff is actually well documented.
Yeah, and so of course doctors aren't the only professionals who aren't happy today. Many professions, including lawyers, have become sort of constrained by corporate structures, resulting in loss of autonomy, status, respect. What are some of the practical things that you're doing to sort of overcome those things?
Depending on, what your personality is, I think that, myself, I think, you as well, I'm kind of wanted right out of the gate knowing that, I want to have my own practice. And, I want to move towards having my own practice and kind of building my own operation. And I think I kind of have a view and a vision of how a practice should be run and how the patient experience should look like. And, I think relatively early in my career, I finished up with training like 3-4 months ago. Even in fellowship, I knew that was something that I wanted to do. So, I think that's kind of the track that I'm on at the moment.
And why is that something you wanted to do? Why did you want to do your own? You're fresh. You're out the gate. Why did you not want to get maybe a cushier, more sort of like quote unquote stable position?
I think I just trust my instincts. You know? I think I've taken a lot of the harder kind of roads, like, not to kind of do the JFK thing, but why do we go to the moon? Like, we go because it's hard. And I remember thinking that even through medical training, and I don't know if I've ever even told you this. I still remember in med school when I was kind of burnt out and kind of losing interest in things. I actually used to listen to some of JFK's speeches and kind of read some of this stuff and get me going.
Sure.
And I think that if you have sort of that mentality and you have enough things kind of roll your way, you start to believe that you can do it.
Yeah.
So I think confidence becomes it has to be a positive feedback loop. If you work at something and it's working out, I've had enough things that I've tried at that have gone well that I believe that it would go well.
That's amazing. So one of the things that I think a lot of the professionals, the lawyers, the doctors don't think about is, so I think a lot of us convince ourselves that we've done all this work, we're at these jobs that are brutal. They're just like, if you just look at the lifestyle, they're absolutely horrific. You look at the life of a doctor at a big institution, you look at the life of a lawyer at a big firm, you're convincing yourself, you're justifying your existence by saying that this is an amazing job. It's an incredible, I'm part of this amazing organization. But in reality, you're living this really kind of not so great lifestyle. And then there's really just like hospital administrators and the big firm partners who are basically moving around like chess piece, like moving around all these players as chess pieces. And so when you see your friends, have you been seeing that struggle of like these people that are just getting out into the real world and saying like, what the hell am I doing?
I'll be honest, man, medical training is pretty brutal. That the other aspect of it, it ends up, not that the job isn't hard. I mean, it very much is. And, I have friends that particularly now kind of this COVID stuff, that are on the front lines, they're doing their ER, their anesthesia, their ICU, that are doing, really hard work. Relatively speaking, what we call kind of attending life, relative to resident training, it's almost always better.
Got it. And what are some of the things that you would, when you build out your practice, what are you going to do what are some of the ideas that you have to make it a good experience for the client, a good outcomes, and give yourself the type of lifestyle that you want?
I think one of the upsides of training at a handful of different places, with a number of different mentors that also trained at different institutions, I'm kind of trying to synthesize ideas from different people, from different places into kind of a bigger pie, if you will. So I think there were things that I learned from mentors at Northwestern, things that I learned from mentors. I did my fellowship down at UC Irvine, so here in Southern California, and trying to take some of these concepts about what kind of care do you offer, what kind of how much time are you spending with people, how much time are you spending kind of preoperative planning, postoperative planning, the flow. There's a lot of these kind of almost systems. Kind of systems things. And, because medicine, ultimately, it ends up being a little bit of a high throughput field. There's a lot of patients that you need to see. And if you think about, if you are inefficient for 1 minute per patient and you see 40 patients in a day, that's 40 minutes in a day that you just lost.
How do you balance giving good care, which means giving more time to these patients, with actually making a good living?
I don't know that always it ends up necessarily translating from time. Yeah. And I think that therein lies the key. I think that the key is not necessarily, time. I think one of the keys is making sure that, when you're there, you're really there. And, in the same way that, I'm sure you've spent time with people that, you were only with for a few minutes, but you knew that you had their undivided attention and you really felt heard, you really felt listened to, versus some people that, they're off looking wherever, they're not really present there with you. They have charts, they have things to kind of sort out. And I think that the nature of medicine now is that there's a lot of checkboxes, for every patient, there's a lot of boxes that need to be checked. And I think, with the right sort of systems in place, a lot of those boxes sort of get checked either ahead of time or put together in a more efficient manner that allows you to really kind of have that one-on-one interaction with people.
And what is your approach to like sort of bedside manner with clients? How have you started to develop that? I know I just had LASIK a year ago, and I was scared, but I was like, I just got to take this chance. Contacts are so freaking annoying. Glasses are so annoying. I'm so happy with the outcome, and that's such an exciting thing to give people. What are some of the things that you're planning on doing to sort of build that great experience with the patients?
I actually had refractive surgery myself, like maybe 3 months ago now.
Okay, cool.
So it's I think to be in the perspective where both the patient side and the physician side, I think when you've been a patient and what that's like, and some of my own kind of doubts and uncertainties, even knowing exactly how the procedure goes, even knowing exactly what the post-operative course is, it's a tough thing to deal with, when you losing, we were just talking about that before, kind of that loss of autonomy, that kind of recovery period where you're having to sort of manage this change that you went through. I think having that perspective, and I think it allows me to kind of connect with people in a way that I don't know if I'd be able to otherwise.
Yeah. And then what, if any, ambition do you have outside of medicine? I
think doing stuff like this, the part of I think the holdup with clinical medicine, while you're able to do a lot for people, you're able to have a big impact, there is some limitation in the sense that, you can only kind of see one patient at a time. And I think that if the goal is to scale, and the goal is to try to impact a larger population, a larger community, be able to do things, more than just on an individual basis, I think that you kind of have to start to get involved in other avenues. And I have friends and colleagues of mine that have done that via kind of innovation and trying to design new devices or new medications and ways to kind of impact patients that really are able to change the world,
It's incredible.
In a way that, you would be, hard pressed to have that sort of scale when you're just kind of doing clinical medicine one-on-one. And I think, my goal is to be able to do some of that.
Sure.
And whether, it's kind of educational or, kind of allowing people to get a little bit of a better sense of what the patient experience is like. I've kind of got a handful of things in the pipeline. I won't, I'm not going to show all my cards.
We'll have you come back to that. So we had Ronan Nazarian on here last week. He talked about restoring people's hearing. Obviously sight is so freaking important to your everyday life. What are some of the amazing things that you've been able to see through the technology and science, other than like LASIK, for instance?
Yeah. I mean, I can tell you, what I, kind of the big thing that I do on a day-to-day basis is cataract surgery. And, I think it still remains, one of the more amazing things that I've just seen in my life. To have somebody who goes from, kind of like a hand motion vision, to where, they can barely see your hand kind of moving in front of them, to, first day after surgery being 20/20 that is a change that you can see in someone that I don't know many things that do that.
No, that's such a cool thing. I have a question. So if you, you're a very unique, exceptional person. And when I talk to you, you're an extraordinary character. You're not somebody that you come across every day. You have a positive outlook. When I see you at the workouts,
what are you trying to butter me up for here?
No. Will you marry me? So the question is, what the hell do you do to make yourself walk into every day with this attitude that you have, that you're basically ready to take on the world and do things in a different way? Because not everybody wakes up with that attitude.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Well, thank you. That's nice of you to say. But
this isn't just kiss your ass. I want to let people know, because I don't think you're born with it. I think that you actually have developed a mindset, and I'm telling you this. You must listen.
I mean, I think you've
developed a mindset that is committed to doing things in a way where you're going to enjoy your life and your career, and you're not going to accept complacency and misery. You're just not like, what?
I mean, I would agree with that.
What is it? What is it?
I mean, I'd say, probably there was a handful of things along the way that I'm not sure that I thought were going to happen. Things that, and I feel like, in some senses, I feel like we all kind of have some of these like big, like pivotal, sort of life events that you can kind of point to that, like, something that happens to you, or, is, or something that you do that just ends up changing your perspective on what's possible.
Sure. Whether it be serendipitous or whatever.
Whether it's, it's some crazy medical illness that you recover from. I was actually just, talking to a friend of mine about that yesterday, about how, he started looking at his entire life differently after, recovering from this infection in his spine while he was in college, and just started to view life, totally differently. And I think that, I've had kind of a handful of those things. I think probably the big one for me was my residency spot. I was in, Nebraska at the time, and wanted to, kind of got plugged into this commitment to going to Northwestern. I have kind of a mentor who trained there and sort of committed that's where I'm going to go. I didn't have much say in the matter. And I basically worked at that for
it's
for
one of the
years.
best schools one of the best schools in the world. So.
Yeah, I mean, they do okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I basically just like sort of set my mind on that goal, and worked at it for years. And that was basically the only thing I wanted. I didn't want anything more before that, and I don't know if I've wanted anything more since. And I think
did it live up to it?
Yeah.
It did.
It changed my life, man. Yeah, it changed my life.
Going to Northwestern changed your life.
Yeah,
Why?
absolutely. I mean, part of it was, just working for something that you end up getting, I find that some of my favorite people and the people that I respect the most in this world are those who worked really hard at one thing for a long time. And regardless of what that thing is, I think that the dedication to the craft, whether it's a sport, a business, or a medicine, whatever, I think that I have so much kind of respect for that. And I think that was my experience with Northwestern and coming there, and a lot of the people that I was able to learn from and just change my perspective on what was possible. And I think that change in perspective has allowed me to really believe that you can you decide,
and so that helped,
decide.
like that helped you form the vision of, I'm not just going to do what most doctors end up doing, which is working for practices and eventually potentially one day making partner, that type of thing.
Well, I think maybe I would broaden that out a little bit more, even to just saying that, I think that it changed the perspective that, finding what your fit is. Because I don't know that everybody wants to run their own practice. Right? So, I think believing that, if you really want to kind of sort out what's going to be a good fit for you, that it's achievable. And I think that was, a lot of the people that I trained with and that I spent time with, they were the artists of their own life. They drew the painting and they kind of decided what things were going to look like.
And part of you accomplishing the feat of Northwestern, along with, I think it's helped you create the confidence to know that like you're going to be able to figure this thing out.
Yeah, that's part. But I think that's kind of where true confidence comes from, right? You can't. There's some things you can't fake, right?
Yeah.
So I think to really believe in yourself, you almost have to prove it to yourself. Because I think at the end of the day, that's really what's kind of holding most of us back, right?
Sure.
Because if you truly believe that you can do something, more often than not, you can.
I think that's such a good point. I think that a lot of us have like this deep down, we're confident we can do it, but for a variety of factors, you just get stuck. You get stuck.
It's because it's hard.
It's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard, and it's different. And you're like, well, most people aren't doing that, so I don't know if I can do that. And so that's really good. Okay, so we're moving on to Deal of the Week. so my deal of the week, I'm gonna give you a breath. Okay.
Please, give me.
So Motion LA, where entrepreneurship meets fitness. Okay, so this company,
love it myself.
I started off with my good friend Sasha. It's really taken off. We've expanded all of our workouts to several times a week. Check out our Instagram. It's @MotionLA. So we have professional athletes, coaching classes. We got Dr. K showing up. We got people. We got people flying around, all shapes, sizes. It's actually how I met Dr. K. He was crushing the workout. He actually lent us his stereo equipment, which we very much appreciate. And it's just a place where it started with Sasha and me. We had this idea. We met at UCLA for a workout. We started doing it, and 5 people came, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. Then, sure enough, it became a full-fledged thing, and we're super excited about it. And so my deal of the week, for anyone that cares about fitness or entrepreneurship or both, you mentioned LawFlip on our Instagram. Sasha's gonna kill me for this, but you're gonna get your first workout for free. That is my deal of the week. Dr. K, what is your deal of the week?
My deal of the week, I love to read. I spent a lot of time reading in quarantine, and my favorite book that kind of I think was an easy read and also kind of good for where I was at the time was a book called The Overachiever's Dilemma. The overarching kind of premise, and I think that a lot of professionals probably feel some of this pressure, which is the idea that you work towards a goal, and then once you achieve that goal, you take zero time to appreciate that goal. You take no time to really, kind of enjoy the fruits of your labor. And in actuality, a lot of times it ends up leading to new shortcomings. That why did I not? I got the 3 series. Why didn't I get the 6? The 6 is so much better. The overarching kind of point is sort of focusing on these goals that you're able to accomplish and being able to enjoy your day-to-day. And as you're working towards things, and you're going to continue to work hard, you're going to continue to grind, but do you really have to feel like you were grinding for 30 years for some kind of imaginary finish line? There's a couple things that I ended up sort of incorporating from that. One of them is a calendar. So the author had sort of recommended doing, and I know that there's a kind of a handful of other sort of theories on this, or like a daily gratitude, or sort of a daily thing that you're grateful for. So I actually ended up buying a calendar that sits on my fridge now, and every day I write something that I'm grateful for. So something, there's no rules to it, but every day I think about something that I'm grateful for, something that I'm happy to have kind of incorporated in my life to keep me out of the past, keep me out of the future, and really kind of in this moment.
I feel enlightened.
And today, LawFlip was on my calendar.
Oh, amazing! That's incredible. Okay, that was amazing. Legal tip of the week. Okay, this is sponsored by Smith & Benowitz. It's an employment, personal injury, and class action law firm. Also happens to be the hottest law firm in the country. Just a little side note. Okay, so if you have vision issues,
you guys do medical?
Well, if you have vision issues, you are entitled to reasonable accommodations at work. So let's just say you have vision issues. You may need a bigger screen. You may get recommendations from your doctor, someone like Dr. K, that you need certain accommodations at work, and your employer is required to give it to you so long as it's reasonable. And guess what happens if they don't give it to you? You call me and we take care of it. All right? That is the legal tip of the week. Dr. K.
My man.
You're a good-looking surgeon. Somebody's got to do this job. Somebody's got to live this life, and you are blessed to live it. But you're not just resting on your laurels. You're going out there, you're changing the game, you're changing the stigma for all these doctors and professionals out there to know they don't have to do it a certain way. And we appreciate it. We seriously do. Seriously, I really appreciate your time. And what I'd love you to do is if you could tell us where we can find you online and any parting words for the LawFlip audience?
My Instagram handle's AKA Dr. K. You know, my last name is
It's a great one.
Yeah, right. So my last name is Knezovic. I do this all day, right? You know, I walk in the room, I introduce myself. You know, hey, I'm Dr. Knezovic, and I always hear like Doctor Who,
Right.
And I'm like, you know, people call me Dr. K. So
Right.
it's just kind of been a little bit of a fun play on my day to day. But
So
yeah,
it's AKA DR.
Doctor spelled out.
Oh, it's Doctor. So it's
Yeah.
AKA
Dr.
Dr.
K.
Amazing. And any parting words for the LawFlip audience?
Thank you guys for listening. I thank you for having me, Benjy. You know, always a pleasure to chat on air, off air.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's always a pleasure.
Thank you so much, man. We really appreciate it. Okay, we will see you next week, LawFlip. Thank you so much.
LawFlip, objection, Your Honor. Turn the game upside down. LawFlip, objection, Your Honor. Turn the game upside down.
Okay, so Ariane, they're asking where they could find us. So for LawFlip, it's at LawFlip and LawFlip.com. For Smith & Benowitz, our law firm, which does personal injury, employment, and class actions, you can find us at Smith Benowitz and SmithBenowitz.com. For the personal stuff, like where you're really going to find the juicy stuff, at Benjy Smith and BenjySmith.com. At Wages Guru and LewisBenowitz.com for Lewis. Oh, so LawFlip is produced, directed, and edited by the young legend Ariane Tabibian. Visual effects and compositions by another young legend, Oren Azad. Intro music provided by Pen Practice. Pen Practice, what is it? Premium instrumentals for upcoming artists by the music industry's top producers. For more info, visit penpracticemusic.com. I had so much fun recording the intro song with my man Hilton Deuce Wright. Looking forward to hearing more and more from Pen Practice. So the LawFlip identity, this hot logo that you're looking at, created by Garrett Whiston and Travis Nagel. Special thank you to Shai and Seth from the Horwitz Marketing Agency. And lastly, this podcast is made available by Smith & Benowitz for educational and entertainment purposes only. It is only intended to provide general information and opinions about legal and other concepts, and is not intended to be used as a source of legal advice or relied on for legal advice. By listening to this podcast, you understand that no attorney-client relationship is being formed between you and Smith & Benowitz or any of its attorneys. This podcast should not be used as a substitute for competent legal advice from a licensed professional attorney in your state.